Hey.
Hey.
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah. I'm doing well, yeah. You ready for some electric spookaloo?
You mean PRIDE-2? Electric-Spookaloo?
I do in fact mean PRIDE-TWO-ELECTRIC-SPOOKALOO.
Yeah, I'm fucking ready for PRIDE-2-ELECTRIC-SPOOKALoo. Let's go! Yeah! Pumpkins,
like this?
skeletons, vampires, ghosts. Yeah!
Wow. You were. I saw an explosion of energy.
I'm so ready for Halloween. It's the one thing that I'm holding on to in this clusterfuck of a year, and I need it to stay Halloween for several months.
That's why you start celebrating early.
Correct. Also, welcome to our Halloween episode, friends. Woohoo!
Whoa!
It's kind of accidentally our Halloween episode because we fucked up our schedule and now we're doing this one as our Halloween episode, but it thematically works out. So cool.
But it fits.
Yeah, we were like, oh, that works. Good thing we made this choice. And what choice was that, Alon? What is the tag for today?
Well, as everyone knows, this week is our alternate universe tag, and we have decided to go with vampires.
Vampire ows.
Oh.
It would
no,
be.
No, that's a wolf.
Yeah, it would have been better if that was a werewolf.
Shit.
God damn it.
All right.
Well,
All right. Well,
it's
next
too
year.
late. We've already sent each other fanfic. Vampire AUs. Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's going to be one of those.
It's going to be one of those. It started, because we recorded the last episode and this episode in one day, I'm just like all tongue-tied from the Japanese that I can't pronounce. Whoops. Anyway, vampires!
Vampire.
Woo-hoo. I love a vampire. Oh,
Yeah.
I do.
It's
I
good.
do. I think they can be really stupid, but boy, do they bring me joy.
It's true. Well, and, it has so much to do with the fact that there's, so many different vampire canons that you can pick and choose and, fucking Frankenstein monster your own.
Right. And, the vampire sort of, mythos here is, there's so much you can fuck with. Are you an old school Dracula type of vampire person? Are you a Twilight boo hiss person? Are you...
All right, let's calm down.
I will never let you live it down. Are you an Anne Rice, fuck you Anne Rice, interview with a vampire kind of person? You want to walk that line of potentially getting sued? I don't know. There's so many, and then there's just sort of all of these things that you can play with, and stereotypes, stereotypical sort of goofball tropes to play with, and you can take it really seriously or you can get really campy, and who doesn't love a vampire? Oh.
I don't know. I love vampire ows.
Garlic bread? Garlic bread doesn't like vampire ows.
That's a bummer. I love garlic.
I love garlic. Garlic is a gift.
It is.
It is.
That'd be the hardest thing about turning my life away to become a vampire.
The garlic?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the
Also depending on what mythos, because some vampires can eat garlic.
Yeah, sometimes people just decide that that's a dumb thing and they don't do it. I think I would have a harder time with the obligated to kill and drain the blood of people all the time thing. That would be hard.
Nah.
You're it's fine. Some people deserve it.
I know of a few people.
You're yeah, but do you really want those people's blood?
No, but I'll do it for the greater good.
Yeah. All right. Mitch McConnell.
Yup. I was thinking about taking a stroll down to Pennsylvania Ave.
Yeah, you're we're close to DC.
Yeah.
We've got options. And Kentucky's not that far. Neither is South Carolina, Lindsey Graham.
Exactly.
Let's go to Brett Kavanaugh while we're at it. Let's just get all of those fuckers.
Can't do it all at once.
Why not?
But one by one. Man, this is... we took a turn.
The FBI is listening to this podcast. There are one listener. And they're going to be like, you can't joke about this. And then, nerf us.
It's true. So if this episode sounds like it's been, shredded all to pieces, you know why. We've been moderated.
Some completely random voice comes in and is not political operative, needs to get it drained by blood or whatever.
Exactly.
It's going to be redacted.
Redacted.
Yeah. Oh my God. But I said what I said. Anyway, moving on.
So, Erin, why don't you tell us, what do you like in a vampire AU?
I love a vampire AU that straddles the line between camp and serious. Because I think vampire AUs are inherently, just because of the nature of the trope, they are sort of inherently a little campy, a little silly. It's easy to take them not seriously. what is cool is if someone can take this thing and integrate it into a story in a way that like is believable and you're on board with it and it doesn't feel hokey, while still sort of like leaning into and not downplaying it and basically like removing some of the like really joyous kind of like silly parts of being a vampire. Also, vampires are sexy, guys.
Fucking accurate.
Like
accurate.
Who doesn't? I'm asexual. And I recognize this, friends. So like vampire oos are just, I mean, it's inherently a great little like romance fluff smut combo situation.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with it.
It can go a lot of places. It can do a lot of things. And I also think it can be really fun. It can be a really fun way to like really just like mess with your characters, especially like the further afield from Vampire AU your source material is. I think it can get really fun really fast to be like, what if these people were vampires? How would that change their lives? Like, let's talk about how like crazy that would be. So yeah. What about you?
Well, it's interesting that you like hearing you talk about it. I don't ever think about the camp elements to it because I am a twihard, as we call ourselves, and I do. Okay, I love Twilight. Okay, I wear my badge of shame in Pride.
You wear the cone of shame.
I do, and you know what? Midnight Sun was everything. If anyone loves Twilight, read Midnight Sun. It's so fucking good.
I need the listeners at home to know that I fully cut 20 minutes of you talking about Midnight Sun out of a previous episode because I didn't want to hear it.
Well, too fucking bad because it's back.
There was like a moment you like went on and on and on about Midnight Sun, and I was like, I'm not going to keep any of this in the episode, and I didn't.
Well, you know what? And I'm just now out of spite. I'm gonna rehash Midnight Sun, chapter 1.
No.
He sees her. No, but truly, Midnight Sun was great. So I come from a place of like which also I read like the Vampire Chronicles when I was too young. Well, that was like elementary, middle school.
Oh yeah, way too young. Jesus,
much too young.
Were you even tall enough to reach that on the library shelf? Good God.
We had small shelves. I don't know why. All the fiction like was tiny. Like it was,
oh my God.
Like I could reach. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I feel like I've always had like the romantic angle of vampires, like that's what calls to me, and so I've never thought about it as campy, but you're right. It's hilarious. Like some of the things that they do is ridiculous. So I don't know that I look for anything specifically. I'm always so fascinated with, and you know what? Oh, this is so funny. I think this might be a tag where I really enjoy the world building.
Nice.
You know, like I like to hear about the mythos. I like to hear about how all the stereotypes fit. Like, oh, do you sleep at night? Like, do you sleep in a coffin? Do you turn into a bat? Do you eat garlic? Can you look yourself in the mirror? I live for that shit.
For
in
once
Vampire
in our lives, it's not me.
It's true. It's so true. I hadn't even thought about it.
Incredible. What a life we live.
I love when that's the thing, when those things are addressed or alluded to. But I'm also not a picky person, so like I'll read most vampire things.
Shade. What the fuck? Shade. I'm not a picky person like some people in this podcast.
Hey, you heard what you wanted to hear.
That's true. I was like, yeah, that's me.
So, should we start with what I sent you?
Yeah, please, let's. Because holy shit, did I have a good time with this fic. Spoilers. So you sent me a Schitt's Creek fanfic that I knew existed. I knew that this fic existed because I'm in the tag, obviously. But I hadn't read it yet, so wow, what a delight this was. It's called Small Town Rumors on Archive of Our Own, written by falconeggs. All one word. And of course it's David Patrick. But let me just read you the summary, friends. They own the town, Ray had explained. They lost everything a few years back due to a crooked business manager scamming them out of hundreds of millions of dollars. They live at the motel at the end of the road. They're vampires. He'd said that last part so casually and then moved on to the woman who owned the motel and then her entire family that Patrick wasn't entirely sure he'd heard Ray correctly. Or the AU where everything is the same except the roses are vampires. Also, the author's note says, and I quote, I don't have to explain myself for this. I have no explanation to give. I live for that author's note. Not only can I not explain this, I don't want want to. So I'm not gonna. And I was like, friend, you don't owe a shit. This is a gift that you've given the world. Oh my god, I'm so down for this fic.
Yes.
Oh, what a delight. So the summary was really good. It's an excerpt summary to an extent, but also it has my favorite thing in fanfic, which is like what I based our tagline on, which is the or this other thing. And I think that's when excerpt summaries can be really fun, is when you take a little piece of it and then you're like, or this is the story. Right. That's such a quintessential fan fiction thing. It's the O of the summary world. Oh. Yeah. Oh. But it's very much a fanficky thing. So the summary is really good. This is also, we did short fics for each other this time around, which is like very fun.
I matched you almost word for word, I think, because surprise, surprise, Erin immediately, like, almost always has her fics up before me, and I am always like asking for week extensions.
Yeah, I mean, that's
so this time I was like, all right, let's see how many words she gave me, and I was like, okay, and I'll try to approximate that.
Oh, okay, so that was intentional. So that's good. This has like 11,000-ish words, and it's one chapter. Basically, this story follows the earliest appearance of Patrick as we know it. And it just basically peppers in the fact, as John Mulaney would say, I will pepper in the fact that I am a vampire. So Ray, it's like the summary is the first sort of lines of the thing where Ray's like, yeah, they own the town, they lost everything, they're vampires. And Patrick is like, what? No, that can't be real. And just kind of like dismisses it. He talks to a lot of people who all say they're vampires. And Patrick's like, it's just a small town. That's something people say. And I'm like, Patrick, you dumb, beautiful man. That's not just a small town thing, but okay. So David shows up to get his incorporation paperwork, which is like exactly what happens in the show, and they meet, and it's very cute. But there's just like these little tweaks where like right at the beginning, Patrick is like, maybe David Rose isn't a vampire, but he is very interesting all the same. And I was like, this is incredible. It jumps basically scene by scene through the show, so I'm not gonna like go too much into like the plot of this, but a couple of things that really stood out to me was David and Alexis bickering all the time is really funny, and they have a tendency to like bicker about like historical things, which is funny. And it happens like early on as like a little bit of a teaser, and then it comes back later. And throughout the moments like of the show that we see, the author's really good about like underpinning them with this vampire AU thing. So like when Patrick is debating whether or not he wants to go into business with David, and like is questioning that, he's like, one of the lines is, he's not totally sure what's scariest, that he wants to go into business with someone, that he wants to kiss the stubbled lips of his prospective business partner, or that said partner is rumored to be a vampire. Like it's so well incorporated that it's just like it feels like it's part of the show, which is insane. Yep. That's nuts. Agreed. That's bananas. How did you do that? I was so on board, and I was like, I should not be this on board with this, but I am. And then it gets to opening the store, which is a point of contention in the show that was like delightful. That's like when they start heading towards having a relationship, and it's like David freaks out and all that kind of stuff. In this fic, it's where David confirms that he is a vampire, because up until now Patrick has been like, I don't know what's going on with this vampire thing, I think it's kind of garbage, but I'm not going to ask because that's rude. And David hasn't really said anything one way or the other. So Patrick says, okay, well, what if we open the store on Friday? And David's like, if we're gonna do that, I need to like take a day or two before, you know. And Patrick's like, why? And David's like, well, if there's gonna be like a ton of people in the store, I should go hunt, because I don't want to literally kill our customer base. And Patrick's like, what? Like deer? Like hunting deer? And David's like, fuck. You don't know? I wasn't hiding it. He's like, you had to know. You worked for Ray. You lived with Ray. What's going on? And Patrick's like, oh, wait, that's legit? Like, I thought that was just some weird small town rumor. And David's like, wait, you just assumed that was a small town rumor? Yeah, that's not a rumor. Like, I need to go eat people if I'm gonna do this. Like, that's crazy. And it was just really funny. And there's like this really sassafras moment where David's like, well, it's actually kind of nice of you that someone said, oh, they're vampires, and your first thought was, well, that seems weird, and then you didn't ask about it. That's like super nice of you. And Patrick is like, because David says most people hear about it and ask if we can turn into bats or if we sleep in coffins, and you just ignored it and went into business with me. That's nice. And Patrick went, can you? And David says, can I what? And Patrick says, turn into a bat. And David just like looks at him with like a withering stare. And I was like, this author understands this show to a T. Holy shit. This is so funny. And then, as we were talking about before, David sort of debunks a lot of the myths of vampires and is like, obviously I can go out in the sunlight. I love garlic. Almost all of it is stupid myths. And Patrick was like, well, wait, does that mean you have super strength? Because you make me move all the boxes, and that's bullshit. And David's like, yeah. And they're just like really sassafras to each other in like a way that they are in the show, and it's fantastic. And Patrick's like, nah, I'm okay, cool. And David's like, are you sure are you okay with this, really? And Patrick's like, yeah, it's fine, like it's cool, I'm not gonna go anywhere, but you should probably go hunt for a couple days if that's a thing that you need to do. And David's like, okay. And Patrick's like, where are you gonna do that? But David's like, far away from here. And Patrick's like, dope. So it works out. So David goes and hunts some people and drinks a lot of blood. It comes back and it's apparently glowing when he returns, which like legit. And then they decide on the soft opening, which happened in the show. And then it skips ahead to David's birthday, which again in the show is when they actually get together. And it basically goes exactly the same. The one thing that I really, really loved was what in the show Patrick is like, it's your birthday? Well, happy birthday. Now, how old are we? And David gives him the deathliest of withering stares. And he's just like, never mind. But in this context, it's hilarious because David is an ancient vampire. And it was the greatest use of canon I had experienced in a long time. I just wrote, LOL, what a good use of canon. I also wrote, are we just going to casually gloss over the fact that David just killed a bunch of people? And then we did. And I was like, all right, cool. I also had a moment of like, okay, so David being that old is cool, but raises a lot of questions for me that I doubt are going to get resolved. And also, why haven't I read any Old Guard fanfic yet? Because it's like the same question of like, what does it mean to be immortal and to like exist from like the dawn of time? Interesting. This fic does not get into those details and it's not interested in them. And like, that's fine. I just had that moment of like, wait a minute, like somebody being that old, like that is a thing that like you could write a whole fic about. And then they go for birthday dinner and, you know, Patrick basically keeps trying to like guess how old he is. And it comes out that he's like probably from like the 10th century or earlier, but also that the Roses are actually like biological family. Like they were turned together or whatever. So confirming that like they were human once and then they turned into vampires, which is fun. It's a fun backstory. I didn't ask any other questions because I was just so delighted by all of that. And then they have their date and it happens exactly as the thing. And then an interesting thing happens with the Rachel shows up as she does in the show. But instead of going through that, this is the first time that there's like a real divergence from what happens on screen in the show. Rachel and Patrick are talking. And Patrick is like ranting about feelings and whatever. And Rachel's like, it says that Rachel knows that Patrick is in love with David. And she basically says, I won't tell your parents about your boyfriend or that you're dating a vampire. And I was like, why is Rachel so chill about this? Why is no one freaked out about this fucking vampire situation? That was my large question, was like, okay. But I also was kind of okay with it because in the show, a lot of bizarre shit happens in Schitt's Creek and no one questions it. So then I was like, wait, that's kind of in character for the show. But like Rachel went and it's fine. And then they do the You're Simply the Best song and it's adorable. Or they allude to it. They don't really go through it. There's a moment where David almost loses control with Patrick and almost bites him and freaks out, which is like quintessential vampire. Oh,
quintessential.
Yeah, that's like a very standard thing. And David's like, how are you not afraid of me? And Patrick is like, should I be? I'm like, not. Whatever. And David's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I think you should actually probably be a little scared of me. Yeah. And Patrick's like, that's fine, I trust you. David's like, okay, I guess. And they end up having a very sweet conversation about David hasn't gone hunting in a while, and Patrick's like, why have you not gone hunting? That's dumb. And David's like, I don't want to miss anything. And Patrick's like, you're not going to miss anything. It's Schitt's Creek. Nothing happens. And David's like, no, I don't want to miss anything with you. Like, human lives are so short in comparison to mine that, like, I don't want to miss a second of yours. And I was like, holy shit. And so it did kind of, like, after that initial, like, I have questions about how this question of David being so old is going to play into this, like, it did have some impact on the rest of the story, which I thought was cool. So I was pretty grateful for that loop back into that question and felt that that was like a really solid through line heading back in. And then they have a dinner party where the David and Alexis bickering is front and center, And they spend the whole time talking about how Alexis and David and their parents have meddled in every major world event throughout history, and it's all their fault. And it's so funny because in the show, Alexis is always talking about like, well, that time that I got kidnapped by that sheik and like got locked in a basement and like wherever, and like you just had to send me like fake contacts and passports so I could escape that like South American cartel or like whatever it was. It was always something crazy. And like changing that into her like having a tryst with Genghis Khan before he was Genghis Khan is so fucking funny. And David being the third wheel with like King Richard and King Philip. And it's just super, super funny. And then it was like, well, yeah, our parents kind of inadvertently started World War I because they were involved with that whole Ferdinand thing. And it was just like, what? And it was so funny. And like, again, with the camp, it was like that perfect line of like, this fits so well with the world of the show. And I totally believe it. And it's so in line with the characters, but it's so fucking funny. And it's so campy. And it's so on trope that like, it was just, oh, that was my favorite scene. I like screamed the whole time. And then skipping ahead, they have a conversation that I think often happens in human vampire AUs of, well, one of us is going to die. And that's not cool. Like, that's not great because I'm mortal.
One of us is going to, the human one of us
correct
will perish.
Will perish eventually. Like, we'll grow old. And this is after the proposal, and David is up and like kind of freaking out. Patrick wakes up and realizes that David is up and stressed and is like, what's going on? And David is like, I'm just thinking about stuff. And Patrick is like, well, I know what you're thinking about. And like, I also don't want to grow old and like die while you stay the same. And I asked you to spend our lives together, and I meant forever. So they have a conversation about turning Patrick, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. And that's the only part of the story where like some of the vampire lore gets a little bit like more involved in the story. So they talk about having to go to ground and like be buried together and like sires and that whole thing. And frankly, like I can always kind of do without that stuff. I just kind of, it's kind of like
wow,
spy AUs for me where I'm like, I don't really need the mechanics of this.
Wow.
Yeah.
So different. Wow.
I know. We are like very opposite on this today, and it's opposite day apparently. So Patrick, they have a conversation about it, and like David recounts a little bit of like what he went through when he was turned, but he was also like, it's so long ago that I don't really remember what it's like to be human. But they don't like agree to do anything. They just are like, okay, we should go to sleep, and like this is something that will happen eventually. And then the last little vignette is 7 years after they get married. Patrick is like, I'm ready for this to happen. And I loved that they waited because, spoilers, this exact conversation happens in the fic I sent you to. And I do really love when they have to navigate like, do you actually want to do this? This isn't like, this is marriage plus.
Yeah.
This is not, do you want to marry me for 50 years? This is, do you want to spend eternity together? Do you want me to kill you and physically change you into a different immortal bloodthirsty thing and then
where you watch all your family and friends die?
Right. And then be together forever and ever and ever, unless I like stake you, I guess, which would suck. So I love that they had that conversation. I like it when they wait and they have the serious thing and then they start to talk. Patrick's like, no, yeah, this is happening. So they kind of talk through like what they're going to do. And like, you know, my parents have been basically digging a grave behind the motel for a while. So like, let's do this. And Patrick nods is the last thing that happens in this fic. And like, you get the sense that like they are going to move forward and be together forever and they're perfect. And I love them. I love that. I love all the nods to the show. This is the thing that gets me is like how the nods to the show fit into this story. I have exactly one complaint.
Okay.
In the end vignette, when they are going to turn Patrick, they say that David wears the same clothes that he wore when he was turned in the pre-10th century. Textiles don't survive that long.
Oh my God.
It's just not realistic.
Oh my God.
Yep.
I cannot believe
like,
you.
This has taken me out of the moment. No, it hasn't. I was just like, okay, as somebody who does textiles, that wouldn't work. Like, I don't care how good you are at maintaining your clothes, David Rose. You are not salvaging textiles from like thousands of years ago. Other than that, this was delightful and I have no complaints.
I hate you. I absolutely hate you.
I love it. I had a great time. This was a gift. Thank you for finally getting me to read this. Mm-hmm. I have nothing else to say except that this was a full-on delight and a joy in my life.
Yay.
And then my last note is all caps, there's a sequel. So yeah, I clearly was very excited about this.
So, okay. I sent you this because someone has finally seen all of Schitt's Creek. And that being me.
Incredible. For half a second, I thought you were going to say you wrote this, and I was going to flip my fucking shit.
God, I wish. Are you kidding me?
I was like,
Ooh.
wait, is this the... And then I was like, wait a minute. No.
Man, wouldn't that have been... Damn it. Well, no, I'm not angry. I would never have been able to achieve this.
But I did have that moment of like, is this the moment? And then I was like, I'll be so pissed. And because I laid my cards out on that last episode. No, but... Oh my God, you've seen it. Yay.
I finally... Listeners, it's happened. I have seen it. And I cried.
Of course.
The whole time.
Of course you did.
And I love it. It's literally my favorite show right under the Golden Girls. And I loved the Golden Girls for so long that it's like hard to like usurp
Y'all have
that.
no idea
but
how
it
big
is like
that is.
right under
No idea how big that is for Alon.
I fucking love Schitt's Creek. This was the hardest secret to keep from you, Erin. It was like, I saw this like a month and a half ago.
Oh my God.
And I've been sitting on this for a month and a half because I was like, the next time we do this, I'm going to reveal that I have done it by sending her a Schitt's Creek fic. Then I was like, it had been so long that I hadn't even looked at what our tags were. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what are the tags? What Schitt's Creek fic do I need to find? The first one being proposal. And I was like, well, I'm SOL because the show already has the world's most perfect proposal and I cannot take that from it.
Correct.
So I was like, damn, I'm going to have to hope that there's a vampire Schitt's Creek fic. And when I put in those parameters on AO3, this was the only one that came out. And I was like, please be good. Please be good. Please be good. And then I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is excellent.
It's delightful.
Yeah, I for all the same points that you made was like, it reads literally like the show. Like it's the show with vampire lore peppered in.
Yep.
It's so good.
Oh my God, it's so good. I'm okay. But like, who's your favorite character on Schitt's Creek now?
Oh my God.
There is a correct answer.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, I'm kidding. There isn't a correct answer.
I was gonna say like I had this discussion with my roommates earlier. Like literally, you could say any character except maybe Johnny. Johnny's fine, but like if he's your favorite character, that's a stretch.
Yeah, I have questions.
Probably Alexis. I think she's so funny.
That's not who I thought you were gonna pick.
Who'd you think? Moira.
Which
yeah. I mean, I just feel like
excuse me, Emmy winner Catherine O'Hara.
Oh, okay. So first, hang on.
Too many threads.
I feel like I am very much a mixture of David and Moira. So to me, I was it feels a little hypocritical to say Moira and David, which is accurate. But I mean, like Alexis, la 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 la, a little bit Alexis. So fucking funny.
God, I love Alexis. I love her so much. Also, Emmy winner.
Emmy winning Annie Murphy.
Oh my God. Annie Murphy is a gift. It takes someone absolutely brilliant to play someone like that.
Agreed.
Like, oh my God.
Every line she delivers is like gold.
Spot on.
So as you've mentioned, Emmy, I told my roommates, I was like, I feel like I'm magic. And they're like, why? I was like, listen to me. Hang on. I was like, here. Mm-hmm. So the Oscars, I love Parasite. And I was like, Parasite should win everything. And that was what I had on my ballot. I was like, Parasite is the most deserving film of the entire year. And fuck the Oscars because they're not going to do it because they fucking award movies like The Green Book from last year, which was garbage.
We don't have, and let's not talk about La La Land, okay?
Oh, true. Which didn't win, thankfully. But
yeah. Oh, that was a fun debacle. Remember when that was the most shocking thing that had happened in a while? Simpler times.
I do remember. So when Parasite swept the Oscars and made history as the first non-English film to win Best Picture, I was through the roof. I was screaming from the rooftop, and I was so elated. And I was like, yeah, this is amazing. Cut to the Emmys. Schitt's Creek, shortly after I watched and loved the whole thing, sweeps. I'm just saying, I have a little pull, a little magic.
Have you seen the Tumblr post going around about there are X-Men among us? They just have somewhat like deeply inconsequential powers that are like so specific that they almost don't matter.
Yes.
Your X-Men mutation is being able to like influence award shows.
With my love.
With your love of shows, which is hilarious. I love that post, and also everything you just said is like very valid and true, and I don't mean to derail all of your very real points about how great that show is, but also like I love like the video of that girl who just like touches electronics and the fire alarm goes off, like that shit.
Oh my God. But anyway,
that's you.
Besides the point, Schitt's Creek is incredible, and one of the things that I loved about it was I love how safe and warm it is. It's like the stakes are never high.
Yep.
You know, and there's a lot of comedies. I think of like The Friends. I think of like How I Met Your Mother's. Shows where like really like awkward things happen for the sake of comedy, or like really things that give me anxiety to watch for the sake of comedy happen, and the entire time I'm just stressing about how that's going to be resolved. And Schitt's Creek has a lot of really outlandish things happen in it, but it never ever raises the stakes to make you feel anxious. It never makes you feel like, oh, I am unsafe, like something is like I'm scared about what's going to happen, because you know it's going to be resolved. And it is, and it's so warm, and it's so loving, and it is the show of 2020. Long live Schitt's Creek. End of rant.
Oh, I agree. And like, just to tack onto that, they somehow managed to go through many, many serious and important things while keeping it funny. There's a whole coming out episode with Patrick, and like, it's very serious and it's very well done, and like the sort of like core of that is always like, you come out on your own time and I'm here to support you. But it's hilarious because David has just like completely fucked up, and he spends the whole time being like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, which is like hilarious, and it's so funny, and it's such a serious thing to like go through, but it still managed to have this like levity and joy while still taking the thing seriously. And that is hard to do well, because for any other show that would have been a very special episode, and it would have had this tone of like, and then Patrick like has to come out to his parents, but like it was just so woven into like the fabric of the joy of the show that like it didn't become the very special episode. It just was another hilarious sort of mishap in their day-to-day lives, but without being like overly blasé about it. Like, they didn't not take it seriously, they just made it funny. And that is, oh my god, Dan Levy deserves every award that he gets for the writing of that show.
All of them.
The cast deserves every award they got for like bringing that show to life.
All of them.
That show deserves everything it gets. Dan Levy, please come on this podcast.
Dan Levy, please, I beg
Mostly
of
so
you.
we can just like gush for a while. Like, that's all we're really here for. And like, who doesn't want,
and I can cry.
Oh, maybe not. I was gonna say, who doesn't want to like fans just like being like, you're amazing for like an hour, but that could get weird.
Yep.
So anyway, Dan Levy,
and then we can get married afterwards.
I didn't say that.
I did.
Okay.
Anyway, that being said, going back to this fic, I loved it.
Yep.
I did read half of the sequel, and I would gently nudge you to not read the sequel, because I'm very curious, and I love vampire. I love a vampire story where a person has just turned and they're like, it's new vampires, so see how they react, you know. So Patrick is turned, and it's like him waking up, and then they have to go hunting, and they go hunting, and we see it happen. There's a part of me that thinks that it goes against kind of everything we just talked about feeling safe and feeling like there's joy and levity. It feels almost too blasé, the way that they handle human life. And oftentimes, and this was interesting to me because it's the first time in a long time that I've had to think about this is a dumb statement. It's the first time in a long time I've had to like search within myself to find out what my morality would be as a vampire.
Oh my god,
very serious question.
Oh my god, Alan. I love you so much. I just need everyone to know that this man is perfect, and I love him, and you all should love him because he's a gift, and none of us deserve him.
Thank you, but I cannot accept compliments. Anyway, so, because you think of like Twilight, and Twilight, did the whole vegetarian animal blood route.
Did they? I didn't read.
They did, yes. Okay. And then like there's a lot of other vampire canon that does you take a little bit from a human, or you look for bad people and you only eat the bad people. You know, you're bettering the world but the sequel to this did not go that route. Literally, they found like a national park, they found two campers, and they ate.
Oh, that's not good. I like camping.
It was also a thing of, it was two male, like it was a gay couple of campers.
And
I was like, yike. Okay. I don't know that this was dealt with in the most sensitive of ways. And I also think that this fic was so successful because the person was able to integrate the canon of Schitt's Creek into their vampire canon beautifully. And the next series like abandons the Schitt's Creek canon. It's fully
separate,
Luckily, we're not judging that one. And there was a part of me that was really scared that you were going to read the sequel and it was going to mar your image of the first one. But I would say, I don't know that you would want to. That's my content warning.
Okay.
Is that there's that scene that is to me was a little like distressing.
That's fascinating, but perhaps a conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
Because like we're really here to talk about this one that was thoroughly enjoyable. But yeah, that's good to know. So thank you for that warning. I love content warnings. Everyone should just have content warnings all the time.
It's wonderful.
They're so good.
So that brings us to what you rate this.
Yeah. I would give this a 4.3 out of 5.
Okay.
No, it's a 4.5.
Okay, I'll take it.
The reason I did a little bit less is mostly because a lot of what this is a direct retelling of the show. So agree. I was like, there's a tiny bit of unfairness to giving a ton of credit to somebody who basically is transcribing what happened on screen and then tweaking it. There's incredible creativity in that, and there's value in that, and I'm not knocking it at all.
Right.
But it's not the same as like somebody creating an entirely new AU from scratch and not doing that. So that's where that half point comes off. But this was so delightful. I had such a good time. I'm not going to read the sequel now. Like, I'm just going to let this live. For once in our friendship, I am the one who doesn't know all of the extra context.
I know. Wow.
And I don't have it coloring my... This is like such a flipsy, dipsy...
Full of surprises.
Yeah, a little like opposite day situation.
Yeah.
So on that note... Shall we go to the fic that I sent you? Which is a true return to form, now isn't it?
We're back.
It has been 0 episodes, y'all.
We are back in the Magicians fandom with our dear old friend Quelliot. This is a fic called Darkness Welcoming by Portrait of Emmy.
As per fucking usual, right?
It's so good. It's on Archive of Our Own. And the summary reads, Quentin Coldwater has always suspected there is more to the world than meets the eye. But when he stumbles into a vampire club, the course of his life will be altered forever. Which, yeah, it gets the job done, you know? Like,
it's not an inaccurate summary.
It's not. To me, it reads a little, like, nail on the coffin. Like, I almost felt like it was going to be darker than it was because of the oh, he was accidentally bitten and now he has to learn how to be a vampire. But it was not that. If I'd read if I'd read the tags, I would have. But I don't like to read the tags before the thing.
The point of the tag is that you are supposed to read them first.
I would have thought that the tags were for people looking for those things, you know? Because if I was looking for like blood drinking, or if I was looking vampires with consent practices, I could type that in, look for that tag, and then I could have my pick of the list.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the other thing about tags is that, talking about content warnings more seriously, they're a way of being really clear about what you are going to walk into. So the tags are the way that most people communicate triggering content, as well as just sort of like, in general, what the thing is about to be. And I find the tags extremely helpful to read first, because it makes sure that you're not reading something that you're like, even if it's not something that's going to outright trigger me, like something that will squick me or something that I'm just like not feeling right now. Like, I always read the tags first.
That's a good practice to have, probably. But one that I don't follow, I find that I'm not going to say I don't get triggered, but I feel that I am... If I'm walking, let's pretend I'm walking down this path of fan fiction, I'm like la 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 la, and the sky starts to darken, and I see like the trees have no leaves, there's thorns coming out of the ground. I'm like, nope. I U-turn and I run out.
This is a Hosier song, but it gets real dark.
Hosier, can you write a song about me reading fan fiction?
I should have tagged Hosier in that Twitter post.
Damn, true. Go back and at him.
Bogman, please come on our podcast
and marry me.
Could you marry me? Because then I could go to Ireland.
All right, I want either Dan Levy or Hosier to marry me.
Yep.
And you want either Hale Appleman or Hosier.
Yes.
So whichever one, we'll see how the chips fall.
It's like the Venn diagram of who we will marry, and Hosier is in the middle.
I love that.
If you cross Dan Levy and Hale Appleman, do you get Hosier? No. That's not how that works.
It's not. But back to talk about content warning. Portrait anyway. Is really good. About she puts the note on the notes, like explains the content warning, which is nice. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was going to be darker than it was. It wasn't. The story starts with Quentin going to a vampire nightclub, essentially, because he heard about it on the internet, and he wanted to know if it's true. You know, curiosity killed the cat, and all of that.
Remember a time in our lives when we could like read about a thing on the internet and then just like go?
No, I'm sad.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So he goes to this nightclub to find out, are vampires real? Short answer, yes. They are very real. And basically a lot of humans come and a lot of vampires come as well. Humans get like a certain sexual satisfaction out of being bitten.
Damn straight.
So you see all the... Yep. So all these humans with like wide-necked tops and like sleeveless shirts and like bearing as much skin as possible. They're called blood junkies. So that's it's a good term for them. So Quentin is at this place and he's like, whoa, what is happening? And basically non-consensually gets bitten by this new barely turned vampire, which should not have been left unattended at this club. So this vampire doesn't understand that you have to let go at some point.
Yeah.
Because, that's the other thing is like, this is all consensual, like the human vampire link is like, vampires take a little bit and like from one human and take a little bit from a different human and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But this vampire does not know that rule yet. And so is draining Quentin quite quickly. He's getting dizzy and he's like, well, goodbye, cruel world.
Yeah. Well, so as it goes.
Next thing he knows, he wakes up and he's in like a nice room that has like a bunch of candles and he expects his neck to be like gouged open because he felt like the fangs being ripped off of him right before passing out. Elliot walks in and he's like, here, I got you some Gatorade.
And Quentin's like, what the fuck?
What is happening? And he's like, oh, you're a vampire. And basically starts asking him a bunch of questions. And he asks like, oh, how long have I been out? And he's like, oh, about 20. Elliot says about 24 hours. And then Quentin asks, oh, do you know where my phone is? And Elliot says, yeah, I charged it. And like Quentin's phone is sitting on the bedside table. Quentin asks, vampires have iPhones? Elliot says, some of us do. And then leans in conspiratorially to say, some have androids, but that's a bit of a taboo. Which is hilarious, and Quentin does not immediately understand.
Yeah. Well, he lost a lot of blood. And
That's
is
true.
very confused.
He had not finished the Gatorade.
Yeah, not ready for jokes yet, Elliot.
True.
However, it was very
So they
sweet,
have that
very
moment.
funny.
He drinks half of the Gatorade and then goes back to bed. And then when he next wakes up, Elliot comes and sits on the bed and basically gives Quentin free reign to ask anything he wants. So he asks a lot of the like standard, like how old are you, which is always the first question. How old are you?
Just one of these times I want the vampire to be like, so I'm 32.
Right. I actually turned a year ago.
Yeah,
It's pretty trippy.
I'm pretty new. I don't really know what's going on.
There's a lot of great TikToks about that,
Yeah.
like people role playing that. And so Elliot says, I was born in the year 1846 and became as I am now in 1873. So either I'm 28 years old or 174.
Yeah.
My vanity would prefer the former, but my guess is that's not what you were after, which is fair. And I love it when they're straightforward and it's not like a long time, because it's like, ugh, that's boring. Come on. So Quentin asks about like being a vampire and who made him, and Elliot's like, oh, I have a sire, but no one knows who it is. Do you know who it is?
So, the way that it's framed, I have a guess as to who it would be, but it's never explicitly said. I assumed because of how sort of unwilling to explain it they are, that it might be the Beast.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, that would be like my guess, because they're all just, they talked, I don't know, it's like sort of talked about, like, it talks around it, won't own up to it, and kind of has like a little bit of a disparaging sort of like thing. But then it also could be someone like Dean Fogg, who, because like he's the head of like Breakables and they're the physical kids, so like they used to live on this mansion or whatever, and now they have the cottage comparatively. So then I was like, could it be Dean Fogg? So there's no clarity on who it is, and I bet Portrait of Emmy has like an idea of who it was in her head, but it's not explicitly stated. So I was just guessing. I leaned into the Beast in my brain first.
Portrait of Emmy, who is it? Tell us. I know you listen.
Yeah, you do. You're a good egg.
Okay, so that happens, and then they have the conversation, which did not happen in the Schitt's Creek one. I was like, oh, why? He asked, like, why did you leave your sire, or why did you leave this other place you were at? And Quentin says, well, because we didn't want to kill humans.
Elliot, you mean?
Yeah, it's still like a delicate thing amongst vampire society, apparently, that some don't think they should hold regard for human life, and Quentin makes it explicitly clear that, he only bites people when consent is given, which is going to paint the picture for the rest of the fic, for Elliot at least.
Everything Portrait of Emmy writes centers on enthusiastic consent, which, that's what I read, that's what I like, that's what I want. So it's just now about vampires instead of like blowjobs.
True. Accurate.
So, I mean, it's about vampires and blood. But we haven't gotten there yet.
True. So then they talk about how they feed, which is if they drink enough human blood, they can sustain themselves for like a week or 2 weeks at a time. Whereas Penny in this route has decided to take the vegetarian route and drinks cow and pig blood, but needs to be eaten more often than human blood, which I thought was a really cool detail. And I was like, oh, that's good to know.
Yep.
And Elliot reveals he didn't get to finish eating because he had to save Quentin, and Quentin's like, oh, my bad.
Sorry
about that. And we also established that when Elliot is not fed, he becomes cold and colder to the touch. So like human blood is what makes him warm, makes him a human temperature. After all these questions, Quentin's like, so what happens now? Are you gonna kill me or something?
What's the deal?
He's like, no, drink this bottle of blue Gatorade, get some more sleep, and then you leave.
Right.
And Quentin's like, oh, okay. And then they spend hours talking apparently until Quentin passes out because he's so tired. So Quentin goes home, and he's not been missed. Or like in the few days that he was with Elliot, he was not missed by Julia because Julia is off with James, or is studying because they're both in school. Mm-hmm. And so Quentin starts frequenting this cafe across the street from the vampire club for the first scene because he wants to see Elliot but didn't ask for a number or anything. And so he's taken to studying there every day. He's been doing that for about a week before he sees Elliot walking in, and he's like, all right, here I go. Fucking, our soft, foolish boy.
Yeah. We love Quentin, but he doesn't make good choices.
And you know what? Relatable.
Yeah. Fair.
So Quentin goes into the club, realizes that, and it's like, oh, this is triggering. He's like, I don't like this feeling. Looks around, finds Elliot and Margot feasting on a male human. And Quentin is like aroused, essentially like, whoa, that's hot. Which honestly, relatable.
You're like, yep. Mm-hmm.
Accurate, checks out. Mm-hmm.
Again, the fact that we have not yet seen Hale Appleman in a period piece is criminal.
Someone cast Hale Appleman.
Put him in a floofy shirt. I want it now.
And then take him out of the floofy shirt. I want it now.
We have different impulses on like why we want the shirt, but like,
this is true.
And we're back to our normal selves.
And we're back. So Elliot looks up, makes eye contact with Quentin, and then basically like drops the human. He's like, oh, there you go. And goes to Quentin, and Margot's like, you need to eat, sir.
Yeah.
And Elliot's like, I will do it. I promise. I'm just going to walk him out. And so they walk out, and they go to the cafe across the street. They grab a latte, and then they're walking around in a park. And, Quentin is asking questions. They talk about garlic, which, in this fic, apparently, it's not that they can't eat garlic. It's that garlic just tastes really awful to vampires.
It's the cilantro of vampires.
Yes, exactly what I was going to say. It's the cilantro. Which makes
Sorry,
me
I stole your joke.
No, it's okay. You delivered it exactly how I would have.
Yep. I really want garlic bread now.
Same. So then they talk a bit more about like Elliot's experiences and whether or not he wanted to be transformed, and Elliot reveals that it was very painful. They even talk about him picking his name, which is that a canon thing?
It might be a book thing. I don't know. So definitely like the whole Brideshead Revisited connection is a thing that happens, just like that's a book choice made by Lev Grossman. A fanon interpretation of that very often comes from early on in the series. Elliot talks about having created himself from nothing, and like creating Elliot Waugh is like the greatest project of his life. So people have taken that even more literally in certain fanon interpretations to mean that he literally like changed his name.
Oh wow.
And like became a new person. Actually, there's a lot of really interesting fics where they take that as like a trans allegory or just like a trans story about truly just like creating Elliot Waugh the person. So you can interpret it a lot of different ways. As far as I'm aware, I haven't read the books, but in the series his name is actually Elliot Waugh.
Gotcha.
But it is definitely a fanon thing to play with that.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah.
So then the big point of this conversation while they're still outside with their lattes is that Quentin is curious about what having a vampire feed on you is like, basically because he wants that D. So Elliot...
it took me a minute to figge out what you just said.
I know, that's why I looked at your face. She's not getting it now, and I kept moving.
I didn't get it, and then I went, oh wait, that's what he just said. And then I was like, oh my god.
And so Elliot says, like, it's pleasurable for both the vampire and the human if it's done right. And Quentin says, would you show me? And Elliot's like, yes, but in a few days, you need to, like, regain your, like, blood. You were attacked not too long ago. You need to eat right and all this stuff.
Yeah, and also he says a thing too, and I don't know if you were about to say this, but he says, I haven't eaten much, so I don't want to risk losing control with you because I'm hungry.
Right.
Enthusiastic consent. Again, super important.
What I was about to say is that they make a really fun callback to them.
Oh, yes.
So Quentin is like, well, how do I find you? And Elliot's is like, well, I don't know if you've heard this, but some vampires have iPhones. So funny.
And Quentin's like, yes, I've heard a rumor.
So cute. And so they exchange numbers. So then this is where Quentin asks if he can have a kiss, and they kiss, and it's lovely. But Elliot is cold. So Quentin walks him back to the club to feed, and that's the thing. 2 nights later, they've been texting every night. So Quentin comes over and meets Margot and Katie, and both of them are like, hey, like waggling their eyebrows, essentially. And then Quentin and Elliot eventually saves him, and they go up to Elliot's bedroom.
Wait a minute. We have to talk about this line, which is so funny. Which is the other woman who has a wild mane of brown curls, is dressed so comfortably in jeans and a flannel, blah, 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 that Quentin's brain struggles for a moment to connect casual butch and vampire. But she's got that sharp predator grin, too, looking him up and down like he's, well, a snack. He's not a snack, except maybe he literally is. And that's hilarious. Also, there was one time when Hale Appleman did a live Instagram thing and everybody was like, you're a snack. And he was like, I'm a snack? And he was so excited to be called a snack.
Yes.
And then somebody was like, you're a whole meal. And he was like, I'm a whole meal.
Yes.
And then later in the episode, he was like, I don't know, are you guys like, okay, am I still your daddy? Like, what's happening?
Yes. Oh, I love it.
So this moment reminded me of that conversation that Hale Appleman really had with like his Instagram feed, which was hilarious. I'm not creepy.
Not at all.
God. I know too much.
So they go up to Elliot's bedroom and they have some more talk about consent. And like Elliot asking, are you sure? And Quentin is like, yep. And Elliot, I love this. Elliot says, you don't owe me anything for saving your life. And Quentin was like, oh.
Hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, which also same. I had not, that possibility never crossed my mind. But of course, this is told from Quentin's perspective mostly, so it makes sense.
Yep.
So then they get it on, and Elliot asks, so like, do you want me to like touch you, in that way?
Yeah.
Like he's asking before he starts.
He was like, I'm going to bite you. It's going to feel good. Do you want me to do anything about it?
Yeah.
Is basically the conversation. Yeah.
And Quentin was like, yes, please.
Quentin's like, oh, yeah. That sounds top notch.
They do the thing, and it's very good, and Elliot gives Quentin a hand job.
Yep. Portrait of Emmy. You're such a gift to the Magicians fandom. Truly.
And then they cuddle afterwards, which...
Again, gift. Gifts on gifts.
The scene ends with Quentin asking, can we do it again sometime? And Elliot is like, I think we could arrange that, like super happy.
Yeah.
Next scene is Elliot and Quentin, wherein Quentin finally gets Elliot to drink from him for actual sustenance and not just as a snack.
He's a full meal.
Oh my god.
I'll see myself out. It's
Thank
fine.
you. It's been a few months and the domesticity has begun. Like Elliot cooks for Quentin a lot, and apparently Elliot has not let Quentin blow him. And Elliot says, I don't want to lose control, which was the usual protest. And Quentin says, Elliot, if I'm down on your dick, I'm about as far away from your teeth as it's possible for me to be and still be touching you.
And it's like, let's think about this logistically for a hot second, you dumbass. Please.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
And so he gives him a blowjob. It's wonderful.
I told you this was about enthusiastic content with biting and blowjobs.
I know. I love it. So... Quentin has been studying a lot because he has like finals, and he's shirked off a lot of his homework because he's been having sexy times with this vampire. Mm-hmm. And so one of these days, true. One of these days he realizes he left a textbook in Elliot's room, and it's like 2 hours before sunset. So he texts Elliot like, hey, if I open the front door right now, is anyone going to accidentally light on fire?
Yeah.
And Elliot says, hang on, I'll come unlock it, but wait a minute or so after you hear me unlock it to open it.
Yeah.
And so then he goes.
Give me time to run.
Yeah. He comes in the house, and Elliot is like in a robe, and he's like, I forgot my book. And he's like, oh, okay. And Elliot is like, why do you want to hang out? And then Quentin says, well, I don't think we should because you look like you have not eaten. You're very pale and very cold.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's okay. He was like, I was planning on going out to eat, but like we can do something else and I can go tomorrow. And then Quentin says, or you could not put it off till tomorrow. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Elliot is like, I don't know. Like,
again with this conversation.
But Quentin is like, come on, like I've been eating right. You've been feeding me. So, and like it's been weeks, like, please. And so they do. And it's excellent.
Uh-huh.
It's wonderful. There's this thing that keeps happening in the fic where Quentin feels how warm Elliot becomes after feeding on him.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is me inside you. This is my warmth. And I was like, oh, would be creepy in any other context, but yes, I love it.
You somehow managed to make this not creepy. Well done, Emmy.
Great job. So that happens. And then we have a scene where Julia and James have asked Quentin to dinner in a public place to break the news that they're moving to London because James got a job offer. And so Quentin is like, feels attacked because it's like, they did this in a public place so that I would not freak out.
Right.
Because Julia knows I would freak out. And so he like has to make the very conscious effort to like not freak out. And James is like, see, I told you he wouldn't freak out. And Julia is like,
Yeah. There's a sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's a very interesting thing in fan fiction to me, and I'm not going to go too crazy into it, where there's kind of two interpretations of Julia, where one is the like really dedicated best friend who like does her best and is like there for Q the whole way, and then there's the interpretation of Julia, which I think is more authentic and more complicated, where it's like, yes, she is Quentin's best friend, but she often does not do what is best for Quentin, even though she knows that it is harmful or otherwise like problematic. And I think that is a very interesting thing to even just like nod to in a fan fiction, because that is like the experience of having friends, is that they're not always like perfect.
I was gonna say, and like it's so realistic, because even in this case I was wondering like, well, it becomes an interesting thing where you want to be happy about a life change that you're making with your partner, but also like can't let that stop you. Like it's a very complicated thing.
There's nothing wrong with Julia making a choice that is best for her.
Yeah.
But it's also a little shitty of her to spring it on Q in a way that is like, that she knows is going to put him in a position of not being able to like process things the way that he needs to process them.
Yeah. True.
And so it's like that combination of like, she's not wrong to do the thing, but how she goes about it is probably not the best. And that is so true to the show.
True.
So again, that's just like a tiny little detail that it's like so small, but it's one of the things that I really love about the way Emmy writes, is that it's like so informed by an understanding of character.
Right. Then we come to the part where Julia's like, oh, and like, don't worry about it. I've already talked to my parents who own the apartment that her and Quentin are living in. And they said that like, they're happy to have you stay. You'll just have to probably get a roommate to like cover the cost of rent. And Quentin thinks, well, you're not paying rent. So what this means is that your parents have hiked up the rent on me, which is really shit. Yeah, that was like, ow, like, sure, let's kick him while he's down in public.
Yeah.
Yep. There it is. So that sucks. And so Quentin has a depressive episode where he does not get out of bed for like 4 days or something like that. Is not eating, doesn't shower, does not have the energy to like text Elliot back about anything. And Elliot is like constantly texting. He's like, Penny's insisting on a boys' night. Help. What does this mean?
Yeah. What?
And then later he texts again with a picture of him and Penny at the movies and saying, we're watching an action movie. Apparently I'm not supposed to acknowledge that the cars are allegories for dicks. Which is funny. So Quentin eventually, like, his phone is dead and he has nothing to do. And he's like, I need to eat something. He's like, okay, what can I make? And he's like, cereal. Cereal's 2 steps, literally. Pour cereal, pour milk. And he's like, okay, I can do that. And it gets, all his energy goes up and puts his phone on the charger, like the wireless charging pad. And I love that it was... Emmy says like, oh, it's literally like the easiest thing to do. Like, he doesn't have to plug anything. He can just drop it. So then he's making some cup of noodles. He's like, okay, add water, microwave. I can do that. Yeah. And his phone keeps buzzing. And the one is from like Julia, who sent a fucking meme to the group text he has with Julia and James, which is like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Also saying that she's not going to be home for the weekend. So he's like, oh, great. So I don't have to worry about her walking in on me. Which apparently she didn't care anyway because she wasn't checking up on him. But that's fine.
See, it's complicated. I like that it's a complicated dynamic.
I remember I was very angry when I read this, and then as I was retelling it, I was like, oh, well, you know what, human emotions. Like, it's hard to like have a friend with depression and like know what is the best way to do something with them, because sometimes there's not a good way.
Yeah. Being shitty to somebody intentionally, or like intentionally doing a thing in a way that like is a little bit manipulative in order to like basically have the best outcome for you is pretty shitty. Like, if you know that the way that you're going about it makes it easier for you but harder on them, like, is that really friendship? I don't think so.
Right. And so he answers, like, he responds to that with like a fucking emoji. He's like, whatever, just so she knows I'm not dead. Yeah. And then he gets a text from a random phone number, and it's like, pull your head out of your twat and answer Elliot before I stake him. And Quentin's like, oh, that's Margot.
Yep.
And then he sees all the text messages from Elliot, which were like follow up on the action movie, and then him asking, hey, is everything all right? Then 10 hours later, he says, oh, you don't have to speak to me by any means, but I would appreciate you letting me know you're safe. And then the final one, which was sent 2 hours ago, says, at the risk of sounding like a possessive and stalking creature of the night, I'm going to swing by your building. I'm concerned, and given that I met you on the verge of death, I think I am justified in it. However, I cannot enter your home without invitation, so either stick your head out the window and tell me to fuck off, or invite me in. I'll be there till sunrise, which was brilliant. I love that a lot of the tropes did not apply to this vampire, except the invitation in. So good. Chef's kiss.
Yep. So good.
It's still dark out, and so Quentin, of course, like runs to the window and sees Elliot hunched over on his porch step of his building. And
stoop.
Thank you.
Stoop kid never leaves a stoop. 90s kid reference.
Quentin like lets him in, and
no response.
I'm trying to get through this. I just saw how long our recording is. I'm like, well, we're back to our own ways.
It's fine. I'll cut.
You're gonna cut my Midnight Sun critique again.
I am.
No. Midnight Sun.
If you'll just hear, no, you're gonna cut my Midnight Sun, and then it's just
I'm gonna keep saying it in the middle of my review.
And then people are gonna be like, wait, there was no Midnight Sun thing, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, it was redacted.
They're gonna redact that. Redacted. Incredible. So yeah, Elliot comes up and sees Quentin, and Quentin bursts into tears.
No.
And Elliot, being this was the best, like immediately like throws out the cup of ramen and starts making like some eggs, all while like holding Quentin, and then makes him eat, makes him drink, gets him in the shower, and then cuddles him to sleep. And so Quentin sleeps.
Did you almost say cuddles him to death?
Yes.
And you were like, nope, that's not what happened.
But you know what? Not
that
a bad
is a
way
distinct
to go.
possibility in this fic, but that's not what happened.
Not a bad way to go.
Yeah.
So
correct.
Quentin sleeps for 12 hours and like has this moment where he realizes that this is the first time him and Elliot were able to actually sleep together, because, you know, Elliot sleeps during the day and like Quentin sleeps at night. So it's like they usually only had overlap time to spend together.
They have Venn diagram time.
And so finally he's awake, and Elliot asks, you know, tell me what's wrong, what happened? And Quentin tells him what happened and says, you know, everyone that I care leaves me. And Elliot says, well, you know, I won't. Like, you'll have me, you'll have Margot. And Quentin's like, I appreciate it, but, you know, it's like, you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And Elliot says something like, well, I want to. I would like to.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. And this is when I started crying. And this was when I texted Erin. What did I text you? I said,
ooh, the thing that I screenshotted and put on Twitter.
Did you?
For everybody that you don't know about? Yeah.
Where I was like, when are you going to stop bullying me? When are you going to stop making me cry?
Yeah. When will you stop making me feel things and cry? Many exclamation points, many question marks.
Yep. And
I responded, I literally don't remember what I sent you, but never.
Accurate.
Yep.
And so they have this wonderful moment where Quentin says, I love you. And Elliot doesn't say it back, but rude.
That's on brand, though.
But you, like, see his face light up with elation and, like excitement and love. Like, you can see it. You can feel it. So Quentin is like, so since I have a place with you, will you turn me? Mm-hmm. And Elliot's like, nope.
Yeah.
But for good reasons. He's like, because it's a complicated relationship between a sire and a fledgling, and like it would change the dynamic of who we are, like of you and me. And like I don't want to do that. Like, we can find someone else. Like, I would welcome you gladly into our family, into our life. I would teach you to feed and share blood and laughter in centuries with you. And I was like, and then Quentin was like, okay, well, who could? And Elliot says, Margot. Like, she's the oldest, she's the strongest of us, and I trust her to do it kindly. Mm-hmm. And Quentin loves the thought that Elliot is sharing Margot, who is such an important part of his life, mm-hmm. with Quentin, and of course, in vice versa. So it's so beautiful. And Quentin is like, let me think about it for a few years. And Elliot says, yeah, definitely think on it. And so that's where the fic ends, essentially. Like, they've got time to think.
Yep.
Oh, man. Absolutely loved it. I adored it. I cried.
As per usual.
As per usual. True. The only thing I have that was, and it's, as Erin so succinctly put it last episode, I don't go here. I transferred it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'm justified in saying this, but a lot of the fics that I've read from Twilight that you have sent me, so but you so, have been about the start of their relationship, and Elliot is always in a position of like, I felt like this didn't have the party boy angle at all, or if it did, it just felt muted to me.
Yep.
So I felt like the beginning interactions, to me, it seemed like Elliot was a little I thought the dynamic was different than it usually is for Quelliot Fix at the beginning, which is not to say it was bad. To me, it threw me off. I was like, whoa, this is different, and I don't know that I like it.
Yeah.
I love it. I adored it. But I don't like change. And to me, I was like, you would expect the party boy angle to be more prominent because it was in the canon, which I understand. Fan fiction doesn't have to be. I'm just saying I was a little thrown, not in a bad way, but that was my only like, I feel like I don't see as much of the party boy devil may care attitude. He was very caring, which I appreciated because I needed.
You're like, no, it's great and I love it. I just don't know that I buy it. So I would say that I think this interpretation starts him off closer to where he lands post Mosaic emotionally. And
what's Mosaic?
I'm going to murder you.
Redacted.
And so I'm just not even going to bother to answer that question. I think a lot of this, I agree with you. This does not lean on Elliot's early days as more of a partier, of like, you know, very sort of devil may care attitude. But I do think that comes from canon in the sense that like Elliot comes to that place eventually, even though the writers probably don't realize that that's what he did. That's how Hale played it. So, and that's where a lot of fanon interpretation lands him post Mosaic, is that he like realizes that he needs to be more forthcoming with his emotions and he needs to like be better with Q. And that's where like they move forward a lot. And that is very in keeping in the Portrait of Emmy fanfiction universe, where this version of Elliot is very like tonally consistent with the rest of her fics.
Excellent.
Where Elliot is something of a service top. And
yes!
And
yes!
We stand
a service top.
We do. We love a service top. Especially a super sweet service top.
Oh.
I'm dying a little bit inside just having said that word out loud.
Question.
Yes.
What was the other Portrait of Emmy fic we've read? Was this? Oh, it was the Mosaic one, right? It's like
it was the Mosaic bondage one.
Got it. There we go. Okay, great. I like being able to have some context about it. And then, yeah, you're right. When I think about this in relation to the way we fit together from the first season when we did our smut tag, it is very consistent. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my only like thing, and I'm not saying it's bad. Again, it was not bad. It's just I now have a standard for what I think Elliot is, and I have not seen the show. I do not like the book, so I feel like
you will not watch the show,
and I will not. Absolutely not.
You probably shouldn't.
No, well, I would never put myself. Also, I feel like the amount of times I've heard you talk about it, I know the show. I don't need to. But other than that, it was beautiful. I cried. I loved it. I would give it like a 4.5.
I'll take it. I will take that 4.5. I mean, I obviously love this fic and I love anything that Emmy writes, but like I will take 4.5. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well done.
I don't know that this is my favorite of her works. I have other ones that I think rank a little bit higher, and I have read everything she's ever written. But I mean, there was no other vampire AU for me. Once I read it, I was like, this is the one. So I sent it. Also, to hark back to last episode a little bit, Evelyn, who is a wonderful listener and friend of the podcast, sent this to us via our fan rec Google Doc, along with many others that we are piecing through. I promise, Evelyn. I promise we're gonna do it. But this was just like completely reconfirmed as the choice for Vampire AU because it wasn't just me. It was like also Evelyn sent this, and I was like, okay,
excellent.
If Evelyn sent this choice too, like completely irrespective of knowing that we were gonna do Vampire AUs, then like I have to send this.
Agreed. Wow.
So thank you, Evelyn. Everyone go check out Evelyn's Magician's fan art, which is incredible, and also listen to Philarian Father, and also just like love on Evelyn, okay? They're the best. And love on Portrait of Emmy. They're also the best.
Yeah. Wow. This feels like a real family affair almost.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I love Twitter so much, is like I've got all these like weird little like fandom-y friends who've just become this like tight-knit little community of people. It mostly started from all of us being real salty about the show, and then we all just decided collectively that we owned the show now, and now we just like do all this stuff and just like have a grand old time.
True.
And it honestly is the best thing ever on the internet. Like I just ignore all the bad internet and I just hang out with my friends.
I love it.
Yay!
Right. Another spooky episode in the can.
PRIDE-TWO-ELECTRIC-SPOOKALOO.
That being said, friends, I hope everyone has a good Halloween. I know that it looks much different from how it's ever looked, but I hope everyone is being safe, is being cautious. I hope you have fun.
Yep.
But,
I hope in between the recording of this episode and the posting of this episode, there are not other giant clusterfuck events that happen. I hope maybe the world skews a little bit better than it has the last couple of weeks, but I don't know that that is a realistic hope. So instead, I just hope that everybody is taking care of themselves and each other and being as kind as possible to yourselves and others. And that includes making good decisions regarding like social distancing and treating each other with like respect by wearing masks and washing your hands and all of those things, because all we can do is take care of each other. Like, clearly no one else is going to take care of us, so we take care of us, right? That's like the guiding ethos of this moment.
Preach. Tweet us pictures of you guys in costume if you dress up.
Oh my god, please do.
I would love that. I will send Erin a picture of my costume so that she can post it.
I love that plan. I can show you. I have some really good pictures of my last year's Halloween costume, which I made a full-on Merida dress outfit.
Oh,
it's so good. And it's on, I'll post that one too, because that's a good one.
So Erin, where can people find us?
You can find us all over the internet, frankly. I just keep adding us on things because I'm like, all right, what if people want this one? So
our OnlyFans is going live soon.
Oh my god. That would be so funny. Absolutely not, but that'd be so funny. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on SoundCloud. We are on Google. We are on Podchaser. We are on Stitcher. We are on Podbean. We might be on other things in between now and when this episode goes live. I don't know. We are on Twitter, obviously, is where we are most active, at Ficklist. We are on Tumblr at theficklistpodcast.tumblr.com, where we are kind of active. And then we are on Instagram, where occasionally I remember to post little like snippet clips of the episodes before they go live, but that's the only reason I use it. And then we are also on Facebook, but don't go there. Don't go there looking for us, because it's not a good idea.
It's a ghost town.
Yep. If Hale Appleman, you would like to be on this podcast, please email us at theficklist@gmail.com. Also, Dan Levy. Also, anyone else.
Also, Hosier.
I mean, Hosier, Harriet, Portrait of Emmy. I mean, Evelyn. If you guys want to be on the podcast, just email us, okay? Like, we have an email, you may as well use it. Drop us, like Evelyn did, and like did, and like many other people did. Send us your recommendations for fics. We have that fic rec list thing that's pinned on Twitter. And then you can follow along with us on our other Google Doc, which is all of the links to all of the fan fictions that we've read. There's so many ways you can get in touch with us, guys. It's insane.
Yeah.
This is how my brain works. I run an incredible Google Drive for this podcast.
It's true. It's a work of art.
Yay!
Hey!
Happy Halloween. I almost said happy Pride.
Happy Pride 2.
Happy Pride 2, Electric Spookaloo. Happy Halloween.
You know what this means, though, Erin?
What?
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Redacted.
Christmas begins now.
It does not. It absolutely does not.
Christmas.
I incorrectly told you that you could have a pass in
it's
the last
too late.
episode.
I'm waving it.
I regret that
I'm
decision immediately. Damn it.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween. Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.